What's going on YouTube? Today I'm going to give you guys a breakdown, a rundown of the PSAT, also known as the PSAT. A lot of you are going to take that this year. It's given in October every year, and today I'm going to break down what is the PSAT, what is it used for, what is the scoring of it, and how does it affect you. So let's get into it. All right guys, so the PSAT is one of those tests that is literally given as a practice exam. Now, for some students, it is important. I'm going to explain why. But for most students, this is literally a practice exercise. It does not count for college, so you don't want to stress about the PSAT. You do not want to stress about it. Now, you do want to take it and you do want to try to do well on it because it does set a positive tone for your SAT and ACT preparation going forward. It also will give you some information about where your skills are, what you're doing well on, and what you need some improvement on. So the PSAT started in 1971 as a practice SAT, and is also used as the National Merit Scholarship Qualification Test. So the technical title for the PSAT is the PSAT NMSQT. That is the title of the test, not kidding. But the National Merit Scholarship is basically free money. So if you score highly enough on the PSAT, basically in the 99th percentile, there's a certain scoring that I'll break down for you guys in a second, but if you do score really highly, you can basically just get free money, which is awesome. So that's why many of you should try to get that. Now, how does that work? How do I get that? There's something called the National Merit Scholarship Qualification Index. Each state has its own index that qualifies you for the National Merit Scholarship. It varies from state to state. There's a list online that you can find that says what the index is in your state. So how do you calculate your index? What you do is you take your section score for all three sections of the test. And why I say all three is the two maths are lumped together, which is out of 38 on the PSAT. So whatever you have out of 38, you add those three together, your reading score, your writing and language score, and your math score. You take that number, you add them together, and then you multiply that by 2. That gives you your index score. Now, why do they do it that way? That I honestly don't know. I guess that's an interesting thing to look into. I mean, what they're doing is they're really making each section of the test, each educational section, math, reading, and grammar, all worth 1/3 of your index. So instead of the math being half of your score, they're lowering it down to 1/3 for some reason. But basically, once you calculate your index is over a certain number for your state, you are now qualified and you can move on in the process. Doesn't mean you're going to win or get the money, but you can. So that said, what are the chances of getting the money? Well, unfortunately, the problem is you basically need to score nearly perfect in some states. I'm in New York right now. In New York, you basically need to get something like 2 or 3 questions wrong on the whole test, maybe a few more, but something in the very, very, very high performance level. So is it realistic that a lot of people will get that? No, but some of you will, and if you think you're in line for that or you want to try to get it, you should. Now, what if I'm not in line to get the National Merit Scholarship? What if I take a practice PSAT and I get a 1200 instead of a 1450? What do I do? Well, what you do is you still take the test. You use it as a practice measure, use it as a way to prepare, use it as a way to evaluate yourself. Now, as you may recall, the PSAT, not like the SAT, is out of 1520 rather than 1600. So the score you're going to need to get the National Merit Scholarship is going to be something in the high 1400 range. So why do they do that? Well, what you're also looking at with the PSAT is an improvement when you do take the SAT. Because there's 80 less points, when you go take the SAT, if you basically do the same as you did on the PSAT, you're going to get a slightly higher score, and that's going to feel good, right? So this is all part of the SAT's program to create a score increase for you and create positivity around the SAT. Now, a lot of students are wondering, you're probably like, all right, Nick, like, if I bomb the PSAT, will that like mess up my college admissions? No, it will not. No one will know what you got on the PSAT except for you and your parents or a guardian or whoever you want to tell. But you don't need to tell any colleges about the PSAT, and I advise that you don't. Unless, of course, you get the national merit, then you probably want to tell them because that's an achievement. Other than that, it's a secret practice score for your personal information. So the other reason you want to take the PSAT is if you do get a certain score, it can tell you, okay, this is kind of where I'm at in the process, and then you can adjust accordingly. If your PSAT score is lower than you expected, you can get to studying and get to improving, which is awesome. If you didn't take the PSAT, you might not know, and then you might not be studying early enough, which could cause you a little bit of a headache. So you probably want to take it for that sole reason. Now, a lot of students ask me, like, should I take the PSAT in 10th grade? It's given in 10th grade, why not? You know, you might as well just see where you lie. If it's crazy good, nothing to worry about. If it's as you expected, nothing to worry about. If it's catastrophically lower than what you wanted, then maybe you want to start lightly studying for the SAT, who knows? Let's talk about some tips for actually taking the PSAT. A lot of you are wondering, okay, like I've never done anything like this before. What are some basic tips that I need to know to make sure that I do well on PSAT? So let's get into a few of those. Number one, you want to make sure to answer all of the questions. On the PSAT, you don't lose any points for filling in all of the answers. Number two, you want to make sure to eliminate any wrong answer choices. So you can mark up the document, the page. When they give you the PSAT, you can write all over it. So you want to strike out answer choices that are wrong. You want to physically put a line through them so you can take them out of consideration. Number three, the SAT math is definitely a strange test. You want to prepare yourself a little bit for that. If you see variables, you can plug in numbers. You can make up your own numbers a lot of the time. If you have answer choices that are numbers, a lot of times you can take those, plug them back into the question, and find an answer. So on math, you have to be a little bit more creative than school math, where you're just doing operations. You need to think through the problems and try to find a way to get through it. That's something that comes with time and practice. So if you're not great at it on the PSAT, don't worry. You'll have time to prepare for that when you get to the SAT. Tip number four, you do not need to go in order. Students, sometimes get confused and think they need to answer each question in the order that they're given. You don't need to do that. If you're struggling on a question, you can leave it and come back to it. If you read a reading passage, you don't like it, you can move on to the next one, do that one later. I do recommend for most students trying to do the things that you're comfortable with first, and then you can tackle the hard stuff later. You don't want to do the hard stuff first, because if you do run out of time, you don't want to run out of time with all the easy questions not done. All right, and my last and final tip, you do not want to stress. Stressing and test anxiety is real. If you bug out during the SAT or the PSAT, you will not do well, and it's gonna be really stressful. You wanna make sure that you look at it as an opportunity. It's a chance for you to prove what your skills are, to possibly get a free scholarship, and to just learn more about the SAT. So don't look at it as anything more than that. Don't stress about it. Don't freak out. It's just not worth it. Those are my tips for the PSAT. That's a background on the PSAT. Comment below what you think your PSAT score is going to be, if you're taking the PSAT or not. As you guys know, I've done a lot of videos on taking and understanding the SAT and ACT. So check out this video right here that pertains to SAT strategies so you can learn more about the PSAT.